I just want to do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You are the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Welcome to Life Today Live. Hope you're doing well out there, surviving the ice storm down here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's been fun, but it's good to be here with you guys here today. We're going to talk about something that I think you'll find interesting. The guest today is a pastor from the Cleveland area, multi-campus church called Fellowship City Church on East Cleveland side of town, and he has a book that is called Don't Miss Your Life. And if you're looking at the screen there, it's hard to see the word miss, and that's on purpose, because if we're not focused on the right target, well, we might hit the wrong target and we'll miss the right one. Well, what's he talking about? This will be interesting. Aaron, great to have you here on Life Today Live. Appreciate you being here.
Good to be with you, Randy.
Before we get into the book and sort of the idea here, which I find very interesting, I was looking through the book, I have to ask you about your professional soccer career, because it's not every day that you have a former pro player and coach as your pastor. What's your background there?
Yep. 5 years old. Dad came home from work. He had been a pro baseball player, actually. So dreamed I would play professional baseball someday. I was his only son. We were out on the West Coast in California, and 5 years old, he said, we're going to play a new game. He called it soccer. So went out to the field and, saw kids running, screaming, they're kicking each other. And I'm like, Dad, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be a soccer player. And, my mom always tells people, my dad patted me on the head and said, you're going to be a baseball player. Never played a day of baseball in my life. From age 5, that was my vision. That was my dream. And, the reality is soccer became my God. It was the thing I lived for and worshiped and, did everything in pursuit of attaining that goal.
So you played or helped establish actually the pro league there, or pro team there in Cleveland. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think when you get too old to play where the coach doesn't want to put you in, you got to buy your own team. It wasn't actually my money, but some of my friends and we started the Cleveland City Stars, the pro team in Cleveland. Yeah.
Nice. How long have you been out of that?
I've been out of coaching and playing. I've been retired from playing for 10 years, and I've been out of coaching for I'm still in coaching. It's funny because a friend of mine saw me coaching just last Saturday, and we've got a facility. I work with a Christian ministry called Ambassadors Football. We share the gospel and do discipleship through soccer, the global football. Yeah. We got a facility here in Cleveland, and I was coaching my 6-year-old son. And my friend walked in the facility and said, man, weren't you coaching like in the South Korean Premier League 3 years ago? I said, yeah. He's like, dude, you fell from grace, but no place I'd rather be right now, at least in this phase of my life. I'm able to be home more with my young, son and wife, and, invest in the local church. And so still travel, still do ministry through football, soccer.
Very cool. That's an interesting comment, because I think it kind of points at some of the point of your book, because for your friend, coaching in a professional league versus coaching 6-year-olds would seem like to be going backwards on the track of success. And you yourself, you've had a lot of success as a player, as a coach, but yet you're writing a book where you say, maybe success isn't what we should be aiming at. Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, this book is all about finding a worthy goal to live for. Ultimately, I believe the Bible is clear that God created each of us for a purpose. Doesn't matter if you're a pro athlete, a teacher, stay-at-home mom, we are all here for the glory of God ultimately, and to make his glory and his fame known. And so for me, like I already shared, I spent a lot of years aimed at the target of success. And I've got no problem with success. Like, bring it on. Like, I want all the success I can get still. I just think, and I have discovered that success is a bad target for life. Ultimately success, it can't fill those deep longings of our soul.
Well, I know a lot of people are like, okay, well, let's see. When they rebuilt the temple in the Old Testament, they succeeded at their goal. The disciples going out spreading the gospel, they succeeded in their role in the Great Commission. What's the distinguish between success as we think of it in a positive way and what you're suggesting is maybe the better thing to aim at?
Yeah, it's like I said, I think you write a book on, kind of comparing success and significance. I think the scripture talks about, our lives are to be significant for the things of God. And you write that type of book and people start to wonder, like, are you anti-success? And, I tell people all the time, like, let's put it in a perspective we all understand. Money, right? Are you against us having money and making money? No, make all the money you want. The only problem with money is when it has a grip on you, right? Like, no problem with having money as long as it doesn't have you. And I think for me, that was a problem, and I think that's the challenge here in America specifically. We don't know, so many of us, that we have a problem, that we have a challenge, because we don't realize that we're spending so much of our time and our effort and our talents pursuing something that can't really satisfy our soul.
So how would you define significance?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I believe that we are here for significance. And it's interesting, if you look this up in the dictionary, one definition of significance is a worthy goal. And so, like, I really believe that significance has everything to do with our purpose, has everything to do with why we're made. And like I said, it's that whole, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, 1 Corinthians 10:31, do it all for the glory of God. That's a significant life.
So that's a little harder to define, I think, and for some people, whereas success, it's like, okay, I'm in my job field, or, if you're an athlete, or maybe if you're, I don't know, a singer, it's like, having a top 20 hit, or reaching this level in the corporate structure, or making this much money. It's easier to define. How do we know if we are living a life of significance? Are there any markers?
Yeah, I talk about these in the book. I think there's some pretty simple, fairly tangible, markers, so to speak, that we can pursue. And, for one thing, I think it's as simple as kind of changing your focus. Like in the book, I tell a story about doing archery as a high school student. And like, I aim at the target, and I go right at the bullseye, and I hit the center of the target, the bullseye. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm a competitive guy. And I look at the gym teacher, and he's like, nah, you've totally missed. I'm like, what are you talking about? I hit the center of the target. He's like, yeah, but you hit the wrong target, right? Like I was aimed at my friend's target instead of my own. And I think that's the challenge of this idea of success as our greatest goal. You might drive the car, you might have the house, nothing wrong with those things, but are those the things that satisfy? I think, back to your kind of like, well, how do you pursue a life of significance? For me, I think maybe like other people, like I was trying to, become wealthy, like become rich in the things of the world, right? Like fame and success and affirmation and all these different things. And they're not all physical things, right? It's not all money and houses and things like that. I think a lot of the time we live for affirmation. A lot of the time we live for the opinion of other people. As an athlete, that was one of my big things, is what do you think about who I am? And what I find in scripture is just this slight shift in, it's not become rich in the things of the world, but it's really invest more in becoming rich in the things of God. Like, I think that's kind of foundation point number one. If we can orient our lives around my greatest goal is to become rich in the things of God.
That's good. It sounds like one of your points, which is shifting your perspective. And I think that's life-changing for a lot of people when they realize it. What caused you to have your perspective shift?
Yeah, I was a professional athlete. So, it's probably not surprising that I'm standing on the side of a soccer field one day. And for me, it actually happened. I was on a mission trip. Now, that's a different story for a different day, how I got there. Never wanted to go on a mission trip. Never wanted to be a pastor for that matter. But many of the plans in a man's heart, it's the Lord's purpose that prevails, right?
Yeah.
Stand on the side of a dirt soccer field, middle of nowhere, Africa, and watching little kids play soccer. And the Lord brought to my mind the story of Esther. That whole cousin Mordecai writes Esther this letter, and the Jews are going to be killed. And could it be, Esther, that God raised you up? He put you in this position for such a time as this. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, in that moment, age 23 or 24, I had this revelation. Like, could it be that God left me on a soccer field, let me travel around and, gave me certain talents and gifting in soccer for a purpose greater than my own, for a purpose greater than just making money and driving a certain car? Maybe could it be that God had me right where I was for his purpose? And I think that's a message that should be resonating with everybody. Like, I think so often we think, I got to change my profession to fulfill my purpose. And I think what God is saying to us in this generation is, you just got to change your perspective. Mm-hmm. You just got to change why you are in the place you're at, whether it's the courtroom or the hospital or the classroom, wherever you happen to be 8 to 10 hours a day. Why are you there? Let's examine that.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I find that all the things kind of in my background, some things that I thought I'd never use again, God has a way of weaving them into our purpose when we pursue Him. And hopefully nothing's wasted, at least the lessons we should have learned through those times. How did you get into pastoring? That's a bit of a jump.
It's a real big jump when you tell your wife, when you propose marriage, the one thing I'll never do is be a pastor.
Oh, no.
But, it's back to that, many of the plans that we make, right? Mm-hmm. Like, but I tell people all the time, like, I make mistakes every single day. I get this thing wrong around every single corner. But the one thing I try to do is I try to hold my life in open hands. And I try to every day, I even pray like this. Like, I've gotten into this habit, a posture. When I pray most mornings, I pray with my hands open as like a physical symbol to say, God, I'm here for you today. And I've got ideas about what I think I should do, but I'm willing to, concede to wherever your spirit wants to lead. And so for me, the journey of becoming a lead pastor 6 years ago, it's very much in alignment with, well, I think I'm supposed to be doing this over here. And God was saying, yeah, but there's this church that I've been preparing you to lead. And whether I'm here for, 6 more years or 60 more years, I can't say, but I can say I'm going to hold my life every day like this.
Yeah, no, that's powerful actually when we do that, when we learn that. And that can lead us in a different direction, but usually it's one that's more fulfilling. This is the book. I want to show you the book again. It's Don't Miss Your Life, The Secret to Significance by Aaron Treadway, and you can check out his website at aarontreadway.com. It looks just like that. It's got his fine picture. You're still fit. You're a nice fit pastor. Which is,
well, you play soccer for a long time, and fitness is part of what you do.
Yeah. Good for you. Here's a question for you. Take your life when you're pursuing the professional soccer and the accolades of what people think and the money that hopefully goes along with that. How were you when you put your head on the pillow at night, as far as fulfilled and at peace, compared to living a life where you're like, God, I'm open to you.
Yeah. It makes me think of this conversation I had with a friend of mine, much more popular player than I ever was, globally famous guy, actually. And I was once talking to him. We're having a coffee somewhere in the north of England. And I say to him, what's your favorite day of the week? So you're asking this like big time professional athlete, what's your favorite day of the week? You know what he said?
Sunday?
Game day.
Game day.
Game day makes sense. That's why I'm here. I trained all week. I got ready all week so I could perform on Saturday, right? It could be Sunday, but on Saturday. Yeah. And so I said, well, that's interesting, but not surprising, but interesting. What's your least favorite day of the week? I say to him. The answer did surprise me, but when I thought about it, it wasn't that surprising. He said game day. Favorite day of the week? Game day. Least favorite day of the week was game day. And it made me remember how I felt when I was pursuing success as my ultimate goal, where my identity was directly linked to other people's opinions of me, where the things that I could do on a game day would directly inform my emotion and my feeling and, my identity on the next day and the next day and the next day until the next game day. Play a good game? Hey, I feel great. Yeah. Sign a deal, do successful surgery, whatever the case might be. I feel good. But when our identity is rooted in those things, man, it's a very volatile, I think C.S. Lewis once called it the vicissitudes, the ups and downs of life. Man, that's for me at least, a bad way to live, where everything is attached to my performance. I think that's how, Satan tempts us. It's how Satan tempted Jesus in the desert, Matthew 4. He wants to convince us, I am what I have. I am what I can do. I am what other people think about me. Mm-hmm. And what Jesus is saying, no, you are who I say you are.
Yeah, that's big. I think a lot of people struggle with that. You liken, I think, some of that to Sisyphus, the Greek character. Explain to people what you mean by that and how you sort of experienced some of that.
Yeah, I stumbled upon that. I'm not like a big fan of Greek mythology, but just came upon Sisyphus one day and I resonated with this guy, right? It's Greek folklore, so, it's not reality, but like this is the Greek jokester, always playing tricks. I like to play jokes on people, but like always playing jokes on the Greek gods. And long story short, he gets banished by Zeus to his punishment. Push this rock up this hill. And whenever you can get the rock to stay on the top of the hill, your punishment is over. And so Sisyphus every day would try to push the rock up the hill and get really high. The only caveat was anytime he got close, the rock would roll back down to the bottom, right? It was the unattainable goal. And for me, that was kind of success, right? It was like, it was never successful enough. You get close to the top and it feels like, one step forward, two steps back. It's why I started to wonder, is there a better goal? Yeah. Is there a more fulfilling goal? A more, nobody really wants to just like keep their fingers crossed and hope we make it to the finish line. And by the way, as scripture says it, one day we will stand before God. And he, the words that I want to hear at least, well done, good and faithful servant. I don't read that he's ever going to say, well done, good and successful servant, or well done, good and wealthy servant, right? He's looking for faithfulness. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. One thing that you talk about that I think is a key to this, to finding significance and purpose, is you describe it as giving yourself away. Now, that's the opposite of most tracks to success, right? Because you got to move ahead of people. You got to take what you can, and that's not always. I don't mean to paint that as like a greedy thing, like trampling on people. It's just, you got to take the opportunities when they come your way. But the idea of giving yourself away, maybe letting others go ahead at times. That's antithetical to a lot of success. How did you start to understand that the significance came when you started to give yourself away? In other words, maybe coach a 6-year-old soccer team, and instead of taking that opportunity to make more money and to be visible and have more of an impact on the business, if you will. Where did that shift come from? Because that's huge and that's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, Randy, I'll let you in on a little secret that I'm sure you know about that has taken me a while. But the reality is, authors and scholars and pastors even, we kind of write as experts, but man, I'm on a journey.
Yeah.
Like I'm right there, still learning these lessons every single day. So I do believe, that you want to find a life of significance, you got to give yourself away. I'm still learning how to do that every single day.
Yeah.
And so coaching a 6-year-old soccer team for me on my journey, man, that's life-giving. That's like part of the lesson of, like in this phase for my family, the best thing is that dad isn't coaching a professional soccer team in some foreign country. The best thing for my family right now is that, I'm here more often than I'm not.
Yeah. And
maybe I've got to sacrifice certain worldly, goals that I still maintain. But, in the grand scheme of the economy of God and significance, in his perspective, man, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So I just find the more that I give myself away, let me challenge maybe some of your listeners. Like, here's a little challenge. See if you can outgive God. Like, this is one thing I've been challenging my church with lately. Like, and it's not just money, right? Like, I think we think in the church, like pastors are just like, I'm not just talking about money. See if you can give more of your talent away than God would fill you up with. See if you can give more of your time away than God would fill you up with. The more I give myself away, I just find the more abundance I have in my life. And for me, that's my goal. That John 10:10, I have come, Jesus says, that you might have life and have it to the full, overflowing, abundant life. Man, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's good. All right. I appreciate, you being honest enough to say that you're still on this journey. It's refreshing to hear that, because that's the reality. Life is a journey. We don't just arrive and become a pastor and now we can teach everything that we've mastered. But we are learning every day. We're not learning. You're going backwards. I was looking to see what the copyright on the book was, 2022. So you probably wrote this in 2020, 2021, maybe. Do you ever read something that you wrote a year or 2 or 3 ago and go, oh, man, I needed to hear that today?
Sometimes I read it and I think, man, did I write that?
Right, I know.
Hopefully I think, well, that was pretty good. Yeah, but yeah, man, like those are lessons. And I think for me, at least, that is what I find. Like, so often I'm just writing about things that I'm learning about. I'm speaking about things that I'm learning about. And I hope they find an audience, and I hope they're beneficial to other people along the journey.
Yeah, I know. We're all ripping off from the same book, the Bible. And sometimes I have done a great study on something and wrote something and then read it a few years later and went, oh, wow, that's good. Not because it was me, but because it was scripture, and going, I wrote that. I should be practicing that every day. But that's just the way we are. And it's good to always be reminding. I have a question from the audience. Someone wants to know if you incorporate any of the Bible or any lessons into the kids you coach.
Oh, that's a great question. Such a good question. I've worked with this organization, Ambassadors Football. You want to learn more about that, ambassadorsfootball.org on the web. Great global soccer ministry. So completely Bible-based, mission-focused. Ambassadors has existed for almost 40 years, expressly for the purpose of evangelization and discipleship. So there are very few times that I coach these days, and even as a professional coach, very few sessions that I don't incorporate scripture, prayer, some form of some spiritual content that, because I find, even though, like, as a professional coach, I've had Muslims, I've had people from all different faiths, but you go to somebody and say, hey man, I see you're struggling. Can I pray for you today? Very few people are going to say no.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's good. I had someone tell me no recently. They said, no, keep your blessings. I was like, wow. So it does happen, but you don't worry about that. Very interesting. And I appreciate that you are spending time with your kid. And I'll say this only because my dad has said it very publicly on television. But he said it to me multiple times. I finally had to tell him, Dad, it's okay. You can quit saying it. But he regrets being gone so much as a preacher. He's gone, 300 days out of the year. As I grew up, my mom raised me. And that can be hard sometimes, especially when you're talking about the gospel, There was this kind of thought back then that you need to sacrifice your family for the sake of the gospel. But I think he realizes now, he's told me that. And I grew up, knowing that my number one purpose, my significance was as a father to these children, my 4 children. And so I made sure I tucked them in bed most nights, So good that you've learned that while they're still young.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's, I had the benefit of maybe having kids a little bit later in life as well. I was 40 when our son was born. So, still a lesson I'm learning. Actually, COVID was a real help to me. Even as a pastor, I was still traveling quite a lot, itinerant speaking, and, I've written a few books and this and that, but like COVID really slowed the schedule down. And frankly, I won't go back to that schedule I kept before, at least not while our kids are young. Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. And good for your son. Good for you. How many do you have?
No, we just have one.
Just one.
But you never know. Might have more.
There's always adoption. You just have to be really careful with that. As an adoptee, I can tell you, some of us are a little, But
open to whatever the Lord has.
Right. Oh, Aaron, this has been fun, insightful, and good reminders of some things that, I've heard before, but you're just daily learning these things. It's good to hear them. Anything you want to add before I let you go?
Yeah, I mean, I just love what you're doing. Love that you're on every single day. But, I guess my big encouragement is, it does come from that whole John 10:10 life. But like there's, prophet in the Old Testament, Isaiah says, all men are like grass, our glory like the flowers of the field. Here today, the wind blows, our glory is gone. There is a significance that lasts forever, and that's the significance of God. And, it's an age-old message, but it's one that I try to reorient myself to every single day. I got to choose today to live for the only significance that truly matters.
Yep, that's good, and that's true for all of us, and I appreciate you saying it. Appreciate you taking the time to share it with our audience today. Do check out Aaron's book. It's available wherever you get books. Don't miss your life. And again, you can check out his website there at AaronTreadway.com. And I've got more for you. I've got some real good guests coming up. So just like today, you will be encouraged. So come back and join us here. I'll see you again next time here on Life Today Live.
You're about to ask big. I'm believing God for favor in my life. Above all that I can ask.